Column of Sultan Mahmud to Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. He is one of the most praised sultans. He was praised to such an extent that the brother of the Italian composer Janissary composed a hymn for him. He is called the Reformer. He modernized the Ottoman Empire. And one of the most significant reforms he implemented is the abolition of the Janissary Corps. Do you know what a Janissary is? Until 1826, every Christian family in the Ottoman Empire was obliged to give one male child aged between 6 and 12 years. They take them and militarize them, make them Janissaries, separate them from their families, train them to be soldiers. The Janissary Corps was one of the fiercest armies of the Ottoman Empire. This is where the tradition of February 2nd comes from. Have you heard of it? Do you know what it's about? Rooster Day. It is precisely connected to the Janissaries. This was one of the ways to save children. Any child that the army did not take, if the mother did not give her child voluntarily, would be killed. And when the Ottomans killed a child, they marked a cross on the door with the child's blood, so that it would be known that from this house they had taken a child and it had been killed. This, of course, the mother could not allow. So they would take a rooster and kill it. With the rooster's blood, they imitated the mark, as if the Ottomans had made this mark with the child's blood, while in practice it was the rooster's blood. That is, in this way when the Ottomans passed by, they thought that a child had already been killed there, but in fact it hadn't. The child remained saved. This was one of the ways to save their children, so as not to give them up as Janissaries. This blood tax stops after the reform implemented by Sultan Mahmud II. The reason he exterminated the Janissaries is that they rise in rebellion against the Sultan and disturb the peaceful population. There is a period of time when their remuneration becomes low. They want higher remuneration and to be granted more rights. Therefore, they start to rise up in rebellion against the Sultan. Not only against Sultan Mahmud II, but also against the sultans before him. But Sultan Mahmud II is the sultan who ends this rebellion and eliminates the Janissaries. After the elimination of the Janissaries in 1826, he introduces a regular army, the so-called asker. The training of the asker was done according to a French model by Helmuth von Moltke, who was in the Sultan's entourage during his visit to the city in 1837. Precisely for this visit, this column was erected in honor of the Sultan. It was initially located down in the city and later brought to the permanent exhibition. When the Sultan arrived, there was nothing here. By his order, the construction of these fortifications began. That's why this column was initially in the city. Every city that the Sultan visited received such a column. He visited not only Silistra, but also Rus, Shumen, and Varna. This is the so-called preparation for the Crimean War by the Ottoman authorities. They, of course, did not know that the war would be called the Crimean War. They began to fortify important points. This room, as you can see, is a reconstruction of a barracks, sleeping quarters for the garrison. This is how the fortress looked in the Danube Park, where you will see its remains. Darastarum, the first name of Silistra, means strong, sturdy fortress given by the Romans. Later, during the period of the First Bulgarian Empire, there was a palace of Kano Murdag and a pagan temple here. The remains of these buildings are located in the very center of the Danube Park. There is a mall in the center. Beneath it is the pagan temple. Next to the mall, you can see the remains of the southern fortress wall of the medieval fortress. Let's continue to the next hall. During the Russo-Turkish Wars, these medieval remains were destroyed by order of General Kutuzov in 1810, after which the Ottomans began the construction of new fortifications. So, this represents the fortress which was built on the medieval remains, and here the Ottomans built a completely new wall. This is currently one of the main boulevards in the city, Boulevard Macedonia. The remains are located beneath the boulevard. During the next Russo-Turkish War, 1828 to 1829, it is called the Dybbuk War after Ivan Ivanovich Dybbuk, who commanded the Russian army. In this war, Captain Georgy Mamerchev, the uncle of Georgy Rakovsky, played a very important role. He joined with a small number of soldiers in the Russian army and performed a great feat, capturing the Ottoman Silistra fortress. He received the Order of St. Anne for the feat he performed. At the end of the war, in 1829, with the Treaty of Adrianople, the Ottoman Empire committed to pay a large sum of money compensation to the Russian Empire. The Turks asked for a deferment. The time period for paying the compensations was about 7 years. Silistra was ceded as a guarantee that these compensations would be paid to the Russian Empire. That is, the city became part of a territory administered by the Russian command. After each of the Russo-Turkish Wars, many Bulgarians joined the Russian army to seek freedom. Called Bessarabian Bulgarians, they settled in the territories of modern-day Ukraine and Moldova. Many of the Bulgarians who left with General Dybbuk created one of the largest Bulgarian communities. They are called Dybbuk Bulgarians and exist to this day. One of the largest migrations was after this war of 1829. Many of the Bulgarians were returned by the Russian command because there were territories that remained outside Russia but were under Russian administration. It concerns a small part of the modern city of Silistra. A settlement, a neighborhood was formed. The Bulgarians who settled there were given the right to elect a governor, a mayor. Captain Georgy Mamerchev was elected mayor. He is the first mayor of Silistra, although it concerned only one neighborhood. In 1836, the compensations were paid and the city returned to Ottoman administration. Therefore, the following year it was visited by Sultan Mahmud II. As I already mentioned, his visit was part of an inspection of the fortifications and the preparation for the next Russo-Turkish War. Sultan Mahmud II decided to fortify Silistra, Rus, Shumen, and Var. They are four important cities, entry points from Russia to the Ottoman Empire. Each of these cities acquired 2-3 Tabias, similar to this one. But Silistra acquired 9 Tabias. Tabia means fortress, fortification. They were built in the southern part of the city. The north is protected by the Danube River, and from the south the city has no natural fortifications. Sultan Mahmud II ordered fortifications to be built precisely here on these hilly areas. Medzhidi Tabia, where we are currently located, is the only fully Ottoman artillery fortress preserved in the Balkans to this day. All Ottoman fortresses were built on foundations or were remodeled from ancient or medieval fortresses. There was nothing here before the construction of the Ottoman fortifications. Strategic hilly areas were chosen higher than the city. This was done because in the previous Russo-Turkish wars that were fought, Russia advanced from the south and reached directly to the city. To prevent this from happening again, on these hilly areas earthen ramparts were built and cannons were placed on them. If needed, a garrison was sent from the city for defensive support. It was designed so that no matter where the enemy attacked from, they would come under fire from one of these redoubts. Construction began by order of Sultan Mahmud II. It was built from 1841 to 1852, but in 1839 Sultan Mahmud II died. He was succeeded by his son, Abdul Mejid. The fortress is named after him, Medzhidi.
Крепостта Меджди, султан Абдулмеджид Табия крепост
The
укрепление.
construction was carried out under the direct supervision of Colonel Kratch, based on a design created by Helmuth von Moltke. It was built by about 300 masters from Dryanovo. It took 12 years to build. Construction was completed on the eve of the Crimean War. The Crimean War was from 1853 to 1856. So it happened that it broke out exactly after the construction of these fortifications. In 1854, the Russians conducted a one-month siege of the city, which began in May. During this siege, the city was visited by Leo Tolstoy. That is why there is a monument to Leo Tolstoy in the Danube Park. He participated in the Crimean War. He was a very young man, 25 years old. He was very fascinated by the city. He wrote in his diaries that he decided to write the book War and Peace here. But the siege that the Russians conducted on the city during the Crimean War was not successful. England and France provided great assistance to the Ottoman Empire, sending modern military equipment and a garrison. James Butler, a British major, died here from his wounds defending Arab Tabia, that is, defending the city. He is buried in the old cemeteries of Silistra. His tombstone was found there, which is located in the exhibition. The Crimean War was the last Russo-Turkish War before the War of Liberation, 1853 to 1856. As I mentioned, the siege was not successful for Russia. The Russian troops were pushed back to the Crimea, where military operations continued. Subsequently, Russia lost the war. The Paris Peace Conference was convened to end the war. Sultan Abdul Mejid issued a sultan's firman called the Hat Mayan, which granted rights of worship to all Christians in the Ottoman Empire. Thus, we Bulgarians received more rights after the Crimean War. About the fortress. What you see in the pictures are bomb shelters. They are part of the preparation for the Crimean War. Before the war, these tunnels were dug under the ground beneath the city. They were called humba. There is a restaurant in Silistra called Humbata because there is a tunnel underneath it. It is said that there is a tunnel from here to the city, which served as a connection to the fortress. Currently, this is disputed. But where does this rumor come from? It dates back to 1957. There was a garrison here until the 1960s. After that, the fortress was not maintained by anyone. People could enter freely. There are elderly people who were children at the time. They say that they used to go down from here to the city through these tunnels. But archaeologists currently deny the existence of such tunnels, and that is precisely the source of this rumor about the tunnels. We are currently in the barrack premises. About 300 people lived in these sleeping quarters. The room layout has been preserved. In the last room of the barracks, there is a reconstruction of a sleeping quarters. When you exit the exhibition, you can take a full tour of the fortress from the inner side of the wall. You can see, at the beginning and at the end, 2 artillery magazines, places where ammunition was stored. From one powder magazine to the other, there is an earthen rampart on which cannons were placed. When you go out, you will see a hill, a rampart. There was 1 cannon on each rampart. About 12 cannons were positioned here at this fortress. Opposite the gate, you can see the Danube River. This is the northern part. This is the southern part of the fortress. That is why precisely on this side these fortifications are located, so that the fortress could protect the city from its southern side. This is the sole purpose of these fortifications. Thanks to the earthen rampart, the cannons were at a higher level than the wall and fired over it. The original height of the fortress wall is believed to have reached up to 8 meters. Currently, unfortunately, it is much lower. During the wars, it lost its height. In the period when it was not used by anyone, many Bulgarians came to take stone to build their homes. Every abandoned stone fortress has such a fate.
Са двата една и
The
съща.
stone from which the
Само
fortress
тук
is
е
built is
някъде в
limestone.
Северови, тук
Stone was quarried near the village of Bogarovo,
120
20 kilometers away on the road to Dobrik. The soft stone is easy to work with and is also impact resistant.
Така е устойчив на ударната вълна от билетите.
It does not break,
Не се
does not
нарушава,
crumble, but
но
because of the softness of the stone soldiers were able to carve their names. Therefore, as you can see, almost all the stones are inscribed. Until 1960, the inscriptions are from soldiers authentic. After that, as you can see, they were inscribed by Vandals. You can see inscriptions in Romanian. Look at this one, you can see it's in Romanian. The city was ceded to Romania twice, from 1913 to 1916 and from 1919 to 1940. That is why there is a monument to Tsar Boris III in the Danube Park, who helped return southern Dobruja on September 7, 1940, with the Treaty of Craiova. What you see are reconstructions of the combat actions during the Crimean War. The Crimean War is considered the beginning of military photography. In England and France, they showed what was happening in the Ottoman Empire. That is, the Russian siege of the city. Here we have a medal for the defense of the city. The city withstood the Russian siege, and after England and France defeated the Russian Empire, they decided to pay tribute to the heroic defense of the city. Therefore, they gave out medals. You can see a reconstruction of the siege of Silistra, made on the Champ de Mars in Paris. That is all.